Tonight, partly cloudy, warm overnight low of 18. As we go throughout the morning, a quick warm up. We will see a mix of sun and cloud, still some haze in the region. Look at this, still warm for tomorrow. Our seasonal is starting to drop off now. It was 23, now the seasonal daytime high is 22, so still 5 degrees above that. There is a risk of thunderstorms, but that does increase as we head into the weekend. Those details after the commercial.
Thank you, Corey. An update to a story CBC News first brought to you back in June about former Premier Alison Redford's travel costs. We reported on the so-called Travel Scout, a government worker sent around the world in advance of Redford's foreign trips. Now, more details are emerging about the Scout and the costs. Our Charles Rusnell has more.
Adrian, as we told you last month, former Premier Alison Redford did not disclose the full cost of her international travel. That's because no one knew about Michelle Tétrault. She's the former government employee who traveled to India, China, Washington, and other places in advance of Redford. Her job? To check out everything from speaking venues to hotels to restaurants. Documents we obtained showed Tétrault's travel cost an extra $330,000 in just 20 months. That prompted Auditor General Merwin Saher to say this about the undisclosed cost.
We're pointing out here that the current practice is potentially misleading because you don't, we would say that the full cost of a mission should include all of the advance costs, the security costs, all of the other costs attendant on that mission.
Now, new documents obtained by Canadian press provide more detail about Tétrault's work for the Premier and her expenses. They show Tétrault found a restaurant in China where Redford could have steak and eggs for breakfast because the owner sells Alberta beef. She provided advice on shopping for souvenirs. And she did necessary work like arranging vehicle rentals, airport pickups, and luggage delivery. Now, we found at least one other provincial government, Quebec, does similar advanced work, but Redford was the first Alberta Premier to use a travel scout. That role was eliminated after our story appeared in June, and Tétrault was transferred to another job within international and intergovernmental relations. Adrienne?
Right. Thanks for that, Charles. A portrait of Alison Redford will hang in the Alberta Legislature. Redford resigned as an MLA last week after a scathing Auditor General report on her expenses and flights while in office. As Kim Trinacity reports, news of the portrait has people talking even inside the legislature.
Along these corridors, stories and images of premiers past, portraits for each Alberta leader dating back to 1905. A tradition afforded to them all, regardless of what they did while they were in office or the circumstances under which they left. Legislature Speaker Jean Zwazdeski says, like the others before her, Alison Redford deserves her place on the wall.
Well, everyone who's been a premier, including Redford, including Hancock, and whoever comes in after, has a place in our heritage and in our history.
A portrait can reveal a lot about a person. Ralph Klein was painted with the Rocky Mountains behind him in his legislature office, and Ed Stelmach had a Ukrainian Easter egg and a portrait of his wife Marie on his desk. The Premier's Gallery is a highlight of the legislature tours. Philip Wong is from Vancouver.
I just told to a guy, she said, the Honorable Alison Redford. I said, how honorable she is. She was not very happy.
But for others, Redford has a right to be there.
I think we don't know the history of everybody completely, so maybe she has as much right to be there as somebody else.
I think she's part of history, and although we are disappointed in what happened and some of her behaviors, we don't know that some of the other people whose portraits are displayed weren't involved in some kind of mischief or whatever we want to call it.
And even though he's an interim premier, Dave Hancock will also have a portrait. As for Redford, we don't know yet how much her painting will cost or which artist will immortalize her likeness in the place she left in shame. Kim Trinacity, CBC News, Edmonton.